I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're speaking with author Toby K. Davis. She is a multi-talented author, businesswoman, management officer, and teacher who has traveled extensively with her American diplomat spouse. Her debut book is called The Ever Part of Always, Keely Tucker's first adventure. It is a delightful and charming fantasy tale that encourages children to believe in themselves, explore their imaginations, and discover their worlds. We are delighted to have Toby join us today in the spotlight. We thank the folks at Inks and Bindings for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel. Toby, thanks so much for being our guest.
It's wonderful to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. I guess the end of every fairy tale is they lived happily ever after. So the ever part to can be the tough part, right?
Right.
So tell us a little bit about your book by that name.
Okay, well, I came up with the title about, maybe about 50 years ago. It wasn't the title of my book. I like to communicate with using unusual phrasing, words, that kind of thing. And I was working on a poem for my husband, who I have been married to for 56 years. And I came up and I wrote, I will love you till the ever part of always. And
Very beautiful.
So that's nice. Our catchphrase, you know. Anyway.
Well, that's great. And so that fit for the title of this book as well. Keely Tucker's first adventure. So for the folks who haven't read it, tell us what Keely Tucker's first adventure is all about.
Okay, Keely is a 10-year-old little girl, and she has a kind of a tough life. She lives in Tennessee, Appalachia, which is where I was born, by the way. And so I have a key to the area, so to speak. And she has people don't have work. There's a lot of poor education and no jobs, and a bully is in the neighborhood that is bothering her all the time. And the only person, and her father has a job, but it's as a salesman, and he's gone all the time. So the mother, Keely's mother, Maggie, is lonely. She drinks a lot, too much, and she yells at Keely all the time. So, which, makes Keely feel really, really awful. She has a teacher that ridicules Keely because she's slow at getting her words correct, reading, math, those kind of things. And so, but she has the grandmother. The grandmother believes in her unconditionally. And she tells Keely that she's special, that she's unique, that she can do anything that she wants to do. She just has to believe in herself. And she gives Keely coping techniques to deal with all of these bad things that are making her feel awful. She tells Keely to slide them down inside of her and drown them basically in her stomach, so when she's being abused, she doesn't feel it, so she takes it in and swallows it, and it goes really deep inside of her. And then when she wants, problem is, sorry about this. Okay. The problem is that her grandmother is the only one that believes in her, and she doesn't have any other support system. And her grandmother tells her that she has an inkle sense, which is basically Keely gets an idea of something that's going to happen. And that when she's 12, she's 10 right now, when she's 12, her inkle sense will become alive, and not to worry about it, because her grandmother says, I'll be there to help you to figure out how to use it and how to maximize what you're feeling, these weird feelings that you're getting, and ideas of things that are going to happen but haven't happened yet. but her grandmother dies.
Mm.
And she is desolate. She has lost her only friend. And her father comes home from his trip, and they go to the reading of the will, of her grandmother's will. And her grandmother, in her will, leaves her a horse. The horse's name is Mariah. Mariah means the wind. I don't know if you've heard that song from years ago.
Yes.
And they called the wind Mariah. That's where I got that from.
Gotcha.
but Mariah is a fairly old horse, and Keely, her grandmother leaves her a person to help her take care of it and learn how to take care of Mariah. And the first time that she sees Mariah, Mariah talks to her telepathically.
Wow.
And tells her, I've got a secret.
Mm.
And Keely listens. What's your secret? Says, I'm going to have a baby. I'm going to have a foal. And so Keely blurts this out and gets in a whole lot of trouble because nobody believes that she can hear the horse talking. And so that's kind of, that's one adventure.
Wonderful.
And, yeah. So anyway, but the Mariah's secret is that the baby that she has, the foal that she has, is the last unicorn.
Mm. Wow.
Anyway.
That's beautiful. It's a beautiful story. It's really helpful for kids because I think young people at one point in their lives or another feel like an outcast.
Right. And I hope that this book will make them believe in themselves.
Yeah.
Kids that have low self-esteem, they cheer Keely on in all of her adventures. They are there for her. They want her to succeed, and her successes become their successes.
Right. Yeah.
And
wonderful. Wonderful. I mean, the image of the grandmother is great and supportive. The image of the horse is great and supportive. And then you have the magical element of the unicorn as well.
The unicorn's name is Crea. And that word means believe.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So this must have been quite a wonderful journey for you writing this book, being involved in this magical world.
It was. I mean, that I had the idea for over 30 years, but I'd write a little bit here, a little bit there, and working, and so it wasn't necessary. And then, I'd get a different idea. And so then I'd go down that rabbit hole for a while.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then go, that didn't work.
Yeah. So. Now, in part, are you Keely Tucker?
Yes. I mean,
yes.
in part. The thing is, all of these stories, all of her adventures, they are somehow tied to me, but I was a teacher. So I taught school. I taught to gifted kids. I taught learning disabled kids. I taught, resource. And so it's their stories too.
Yeah.
The things that happened to those kids, and the trouble and the bullies that I've run into and that have bothered not only me, but,
yeah.
And I didn't complete the story earlier. The real reason was because I didn't want to upset my mother. Because my mother is some of this is about her. She drank too much, for example.
Right.
And
exactly.
But I finished it before she died. And she was very excited about it. So
so you got her blessing on it.
Yeah, so it went fine.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting you grew up in Appalachia. I think Appalachia is a region that most Americans know so little about, other than what we see in grainy documentaries of kids swigging
country.
Mountain Dew and have no teeth and all that stuff. Is
Yes.
it like that? Is it that bad? Was that your experience?
Well, I left at a young age.
Hmm.
So,
How
but
young?
uh, about under a year old.
Oh, okay.
But well, I was adopted, so out of the
I
family.
see. I
So
see.
it was, but all of the stories, all of them are true because I have my relatives there. I visited my relatives. I have all of my grandmother told me all of these tales about, my granddaddy was a bootlegger,
Right.
for example, and he went to jail for making whiskey in his yard. So,
Right.
and and there were bullies, these really severe bullying that went on, and the schools, pretty
Pretty
awful.
rough, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, and even now, illiteracy is
Yeah.
one of the biggest problems. And that is one of my goals with my book, is to get kids excited about reading,
Mhm.
get kids motivated that they want to read and they want to read more
Yeah.
because they want to experience, they want to learn. They want to
Right.
learn what else is there. And you learn so much by reading,
Sure. And
And
reading is the key to everything.
yes, and
Yeah.
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's why if I've taught my own kids to read
Mhm.
early before they started school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Taught
My
my
mom worked with me too. Yeah. Because you see the
grandkids.
importance of it. Like I said, particularly if you're not well off,
Yeah,
reading and being able to learn is your way out.
exactly.
Yeah.
And if you can't read, then
Yeah.
you are really out of luck.
Then you're disadvantaged for sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's-
absolutely. And then that cycle of poverty
It
continues.
just continues.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have had so many wonderful experiences with not only my own kids, but the kids that I have taught. Teaching gifted children
Hmm.
is no sweat.
Yeah.
The teacher looks brilliant.
Right.
Because they learn, so many of them learn so fast. But when I was in Saudi Arabia, I was the resource teacher for the ninth graders. I had ninth graders that couldn't read at all. They couldn't even read first grade level. And so that's why they hired me. I was a first grade teacher, class pretty much. And they thought, well, these kids never learned phonics.
Right.
And so they hired me to teach them how to read. And I did, in a year, because I had unlimited resources also. I taught
Right.
3 to 5 kids at a time with a full-time aide, and the money was not an object. And so,
And I assume you're teaching them English, right?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Oh, these were American kids.
Oh, okay. In Saudi Arabia.
In Saudi Arabia, their parents were working on Aramco or, other areas. And
Gotcha.
I taught at the international school in Riyadh.
Gotcha.
So
Who was your first reader of this book, Keely Tucker's First Adventure?
my first what?
Your first reader. Who did you give the book to and say, hey, what do you think of this?
My husband.
Yeah. Did he read it page by page, chapter by chapter, or did you wait for a while until you compiled some?
Oh, he read it chapter by chapter because I read it to him chapter by chapter.
That's great.
And then there were other friends, excuse me.
Sure.
There were other friends who read it and were so touched by it that it changed their life. It really
Wonderful.
impacted them. And I had a maid who was watching me working on writing one day when she was cleaning. She was working for me, and she wanted to know what I was doing. So I showed her, and she said, "Oh," she says, "my daughter is 13, and I wonder if she would like this." And I go, "Wow, here, I'll give you a copy." So I endorsed it and gave it to her. She came back the next month And she says, I don't know what it was about that book, but my daughter's different. She carries the book with her everywhere. It's like a Bible to her. And I need another copy for her friend because my daughter has changed. She talks to me. And that's what you want. You want people to be moved. You want them to be made aware that words have power. I think like her daughter, was, not very nice to her mother.
Right.
And just anyway,
Yeah.
those are the kind of experiences that reaction I've had from people that have read the book. And if you read the reviews that I've gotten, they're really positive.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. And so I'm pleased with that. I hope that more and more people read my book and learn something from it, So
Absolutely. Now, are there going to be more adventures for Keely Tucker?
Yes, I'm in the middle of the sequel. I haven't gotten past the middle for quite a while.
Well, the first one took you 30 years, so you get another 30
exactly.
for this one.
I don't think I'll be around another year, but you never know.
Exactly. So what's going to be the focus of this book, the sequel?
The focus of the sequel is it starts on Keely's 12th birthday. That is the day that she has this inkle sense, the sense of what's going to come. And her grandmother told her, you don't really know what this is yet. It will awaken on your 12th birthday. But she promised her, I'll be here to help you figure out, what it is. But her grandmother died. So this book opens on her 12th birthday. And it's during the night before her midnight or whatever.
Right.
She's laying there and she hears somebody calling her, somebody going, help, Keely, help me, like that. And she doesn't know where the voice is coming from, but it wakes her up out of a sound sleep. And she sees in the corner of her room, all of these different colors of beautiful colors. And it looks like the Milky Way. So she gets out of her bed and she walks over and she listens. And yes, she hears the voices calling to her. That's how it starts.
Wonderful.
And so it's basically she travels to an in-between space between universes or dimensions, not dimensions. And her fantasy adventure continues.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds a magical start to that book, that's for sure. Let me ask you, have you envisioned Keely Tucker's first adventure as a series or a movie or animated or live action?
Yes, of course. I have. And the way I envision it is not animated, not a cartoon, not animated. I see it more like a real characters playing the parts, like E.T., for example, or what is the name of that book? The Last Unicorn, or where you have actual people playing the parts of Keely and Meowcher and Growler. And these characters are intriguing. People love them. They want to be with them. They want, because they work as a team and, and they help each other. And the communication is magnificent. I had so much fun coming up with the different languages that the mythical beasts speak, for example. There's several different kinds of unicorns, and there's dream catchers who catch your dreams, and dream wishers who catch your wishes. And so
that's great. So
anyway.
much fun building a whole different world, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that when I was 10,
Yeah.
I was the neighborhood, actually, even before I was 10. I used to basically captivate the neighborhood with my stories. They'd all come over and Toby would engage them in a fantasy tale.
That's
And
great.
I swear that if you found some of them today, they probably will say, Toby really can't fly. I made them believe that,
That's great. That's great. It was a different era when people used their imaginations more, when people were telling each other stories, where kids played and weren't glued to this all the time, and we weren't glued to this all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah. So much is lost, even though so much is gained, right?
Exactly. So, with the movie presentation on this book, you could have it as a series, like the book has like 28 chapters. There are easy breaks in it. So you could have the first movie be the first 3 chapters, and
Right.
that kind of series.
Yep. Yeah. Well, fantasy, obviously, by the success of Harry Potter, is
Yes.
desired strongly by young people. I think my son, who's 33 now, still rereads the Harry Potter books.
Yes.
I mean, because they love that aspect of magic, that aspect of childhood, that aspect of bonding.
Yes. And, it's just something they yearn for. They yearn for a hero. They yearn for somebody that they can believe in, that makes them, makes their memories special.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagination is the key,
What is the key? Imagination?
Imagination.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this expression from Albert Einstein, but he said, imagination is more important than knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I believe that. Particularly now in this age we're getting into, where knowledge is available at the tap of a few fingers, but the imagination is something that can't be created so far.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't buy that. But like, for example, when I'm writing, I don't really know where it's going sometimes.
Right.
I just start, typing and thinking, and all of a sudden the story takes over.
Yeah.
The characters come out, it just goes,
and it follows its own logical conclusion, right? It comes onto a life of its own. What would Mariah do? What would Keely do? What would Grams do?
Right. And it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow. My husband will come in and says, what are you doing? Well,
exactly.
Really want to hear, have a seat.
Are you an early morning writer or anytime writer, or?
I like to write in the morning.
Yeah.
More than later. My brain is working a little bit better. I mean, half the time I've been being bothered by something I'm thinking about.
Right.
As I'm trying to sleep, I get an idea, and then it just kind of eats away at me, until I get up.
And you get up and get out the laptop or the computer and start working on it.
Yep.
Yeah, they actually say early morning is a great time to write because you're still in that dreamlike state. So your imagination is alive at that point as well.
You're still living in the dream.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about bullying and some of the lessons that Keely learns and coping mechanisms that she learns.
Right.
Talk to the audience a little bit about bullying and how Keely learns to cope.
Okay, there's this bully that is basically the neighborhood bully, and who threatens Keely all the time. He has a great big driftwood stick that he threatens to beat her with. It scares her. He doesn't necessarily hit her, but it comes really, really close. And Keely's grandmother tells her, you can't just ignore bullies. You have to tell them. You have to communicate with them to stop. You know, you have to use your voice to, you know, say, hey, cut that out. That's not nice, you know, and it's not just avoidance. It's actually, you have to interact. And if you do that enough times, you know, and also like she had this other character that's in the book, Simon, who's really cool guy, but a great big guy that's all with purple capes and stuff like that. And he helps her also stop the bullying. But Keely, but the coping technique is to not let them get away with it. You know, you report them, you fight back, you know, literally, and they will, because they're chickens. You know.
Exactly. Preying on the people they feel are vulnerable or won't fight back. So taking a stand is important. Tell me a little bit about how your travel around the world and living in different places around the world has informed your writing.
Well, it's actually a whole big part of it. We lived, I think it was 33 years overseas in 12 countries.
Wow.
And lots of different languages and cultures. Like look behind me and stuff.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
You know, the Far East, Thailand, Burma, Korea, Germany, Italy, not so hard. And then all over South America, from the cultures and the languages. Like, for example, Thailand. We lived there for 5 years, 2 different times, once for 2 years, once for 3. The Thai people are loving. They accept you, you know, they accept who you are, and they're willing to just give you more than the benefit of the doubt. They trust you. And the important thing is you learn culturally very quickly how they want you to act. Like, for example, they have certain things. You never, ever pat a Thai on his head, for example, because Thais believe the soul resides in the head. So all of these, oh, good little boy.
Exactly. Don't do that.
You know, and if and the same, like, I don't know if you've ever seen a lot of people from Thailand, China, it's the same way. It's when you're giving them anything, but particularly money, you always give it with 2 hands, like, you know, 2 hands like this. Both hands have to be touching the money. And because you're giving it to them, and if you're giving it to them one-handed, you're keeping it. You're not really giving it to them.
Right. So and it's two-fisted giving, basically.
Right. And if you can't touch, if you can't reach that way, touch your arm like here, and then out like this, so that you are still touching with 2 hands.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you know, so these
are. So learning to live and cope in those different worlds helps you create different worlds and different cultures and different customs, I'd imagine.
It helps you be accepted and helps you be basically thought better of, because they know that you're a foreigner, but you have taken the time to learn about their culture a little bit, you know, and so, you know, not to offend them. And so, and in Saudi Arabia, very, very difficult place for women.
Yeah.
And I survived.
Right. Did you have to cover your hair and all that?
No, I didn't. Right. The embassy had an agreement with the government that as long as we dressed
conservatively,
which meant wearing kind of, you know, I did not wear this black abaya thing. We didn't have to, but I wore, you know, loose clothes, long skirts, loose blouses, was not wearing hot pants, for example.
Well, yeah, because you might have a deal with the government, but you don't have a deal with the people.
Right,
You
right,
don't want
right.
to spark an incident, that's for sure.
And,
Was there a place that you absolutely loved that you could have spent the rest of your life there, and another place that you literally just had to endure to get through?
yes, and yes.
And they are?
And they are Thailand. I could
You
live
loved?
there. I love them. I love the people. We have lots of friends there. We have visited frequently. Their kids are like my kids, people that we've met and and have had watched them grow up. Really good friends of ours, 5
Right.
kids. Now they're all grown, One of them made these earrings.
Nice.
So, and then Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia was one of those places that's career enhancing, is what they call it. Career enhancing for my husband.
Right.
It was career challenging for me.
Yeah.
But, there were good things out of it. Our daughter was in Princeton at that time, and the extra money paid for her education.
Right.
She graduated from college debt-free, and so did we.
Yeah.
And so that there are, and every day that I was there, I said, my husband loves his job, and he did, and Allison is doing great in school, all of these pluses. You just weigh them against the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Constant,
like all of life, it's a risk reward type of adjustment we have to make. Well, your daughter must have gotten an unparalleled education traveling on the globe with you like this, right?
Yeah, and my son, both of them.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they loved it. I mean, that's the other thing is both my husband and I spent a lot of time to make sure our kids were good wherever we were, because moving all the time can be a disaster.
Right. Just as they're making friends, just as they're getting close, we're leaving. And we're not going to leave down the block or a different state. We're going across the world. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So, that is challenging. But one of the things, you have an air freight shipment, so you can, I don't know, 600 pounds of stuff that they will air freight to your next post. Our air freight was always composed of their 2 rooms, all of their toys, their books, who cares about dishes,
Right. Dishes can be replaced, but a
paper
Furby can't be, or whatever it is. Yeah.
And so their rooms were set up so whenever they moved into a new house or new apartment or whatever, they felt comfortable.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, you're a great mom and a great author. The name of the book is The Ever Part of Always, Keely Tucker's First Adventure. It is a wonderful book for that young person in your life. It's a wonderful book for you. It is a terrific exploration of fantasy and real life issues that are resolved with real life solutions and a little magic too. It's a terrific read and it's highly recommended. Toby K. Davis, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you very much.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.